and welcome dear students. Today we are going to discuss the key topic, that is molecular mechanisms of cell differentiation. The main objectives of today's lecture are to study control at the level of transcription, to study control at the level of translation, to study control at the level of gene amplification, to study gene rearrangement, to study transposition, and to study epigenetic control of cell differentiation. Dear students, let us first of all discuss about control at the level of transcription. Transcriptional control is the means by which a cell regulates the conversion of DNA to RNA, thereby produce gene activity. A single gene can be regulated in a range of ways, from altering the number of copies of RNA that are transcribed to the temporal control of when the gene is transcribed. This control allows the cell or organism to respond to a variety of intra and extracellular signals and thus produce a response. Since the genome remains constant throughout development, the differences between cells must be due to differential gene activity. That is, some genes must be expressed at a higher rate than others. This could be explained by differential transcription or by differential translation of genes. Here, cells have a mechanism by which some mRNAs are translated in a given cell type but not in others. Transcriptional control is probably the most important mechanism in cell differentiation. The clearest example is provided by polytene chromosomes, in which transcription of genes can be visualized in form of puffs. Specialized cells have distinct patterns of puffing and therefore of transcription which differ in different tissues. Transcriptional control has been clearly proven also for those genes that code for abundant specialized proteins such as globin in red blood cells, ovalbumin in oviduct, and keratin in skin. The abundance of transcripts for individual genes such as globin, ovalbumin, and keratin can be measured by nucleic acid hybridization. Dear students, now moving on to another objective, that is control at the level of translation. It is considered that cells have mechanism by which some mRNAs can be translated in a given cell type but not in others. Microinjection studies have shown that living cells can translate a wide variety of mRNAs. The best example of translation control is in Xenopus. The micro-injected Xenopus oocytes can translate SV40 viral mRNAs. In fact, the frog oocyte can also efficiently transcribe and process injected DNAs, copying them into mature mRNAs, provided that the DNA is injected into the nucleus, which contains RNA polymerases and other factors required for transcription. When the living oocytes are used solely as a test tube for translation of mRNAs, the mRNA are introduced into the cytoplasm, which contains the protein synthesis machinery. When the purified mRNA coding for rabbit globin is injected into Xenopus oocytes, it is translated into globin protein. A large number of mRNAs of animal and plant origin are efficiently translated in oocytes, including those coding for immunoglobulins, interferons, collagens, viral coat proteins, and many others. This shows that oocytes do not have a mechanism that excludes the translation of certain mRNAs. Thus, protein synthesis does not seem to be regulated in ways required to explain the expression. Globin mRNA in oocyte is very stable and can be continually translated for weeks. Translation is extremely efficient, and each mRNA molecule can give rise to up to 1 lakh molecules of globin protein. The clearest example of translational regulation is provided by the heat shock response of Xenopus oocytes. When frog oocytes are exposed to high temperature, the synthesis of a major heat shock protein of 70,000 Daltons is induced, while the synthesis of other endogenous proteins is repressed. As we know, most other cells also induce the synthesis of heat shock proteins, but this synthesis is controlled by activation of transcription of the heat shock genes. In the case of the frog oocyte, synthesis is accomplished by a translational mechanism, that is, by activation of the translation of stored heat shock mRNA. Dear students, moving on to the next part, that is control at the level of gene amplification. Here specific genes are selectively amplified to attain higher rate of expression. In oocytes of amphibians, rRNA gene amplification occurs, thereby increasing the copy of that particular gene. There are three circumstances in which gene amplification is known to occur. First, ribosomal DNA amplification, which is observed in the oocytes of amphibians and insects. Xenopus oocytes selectively replicate their rDNA genes. A mature oocyte has 2 million copies of them and 1,000 nuclei in order to produce the vast number of ribosomes contained in a single egg. Second, DNA replication, which is observed in certain puffs of Dipteran rhinoceros salivary gland polytene chromosomes. In these DNA puffs, in addition to an increased RNA synthesis as in all other puffs, there is incorporation of H-thymidine. Third, the eggshell chorion proteins of Drosophila. The egg chorion is formed by the follicle cells during a period of 5 hours. Although it is clear that selective gene amplification does indeed occur, in all known cases, the specially amplified DNA is not passed on to future generations. The amplified oocytes DNA is not inherited by frog embryo. The larval polytene salivary glands die at metamorphosis, and the follicle cells die when the egg is laid. Dear students, now we will discuss gene rearrangement. A classical example is differentiation process of mature B cell into plasma cell and memory cell. Here, immunoglobulin Gs against different antigens are generated by gene rearrangement. B cells, also known as B lymphocytes, are a type of white blood cells of the lymphocyte subtype. They function in the humoral immunity component of the adaptive immune system by secreting antibodies. Antigens that activate B cell with the help of T cells are known as T cell dependent antigens and include foreign proteins. They are named as such because they are unable to induce a humoral response in organisms that lack T cells. B cells respond to these antigens take multiple days, though antibodies generated have a higher affinity and are more functionally versatile than those generated from T cell independent activation. Once a BCR binds a T cell dependent antigens, the antigen is taken up into the B cell through receptor-mediated endocytosis, degraded and presented to T cells as peptide pieces in complex with MHC second molecules on the cell membrane. T helper cells, typically follicular T helper cells that were activated with the same antigens, recognize and binds these MHC second peptide complexes through their T cell receptors. Following TCR MHC second peptide bindings, T cells express the surface protein CD40L as well as cytokines such as IL-4 and IL-21. CD40L serves as a necessary co-stimulatory factor for B cell activation by binding the B cell surface receptor CD40, which promotes B cell proliferation, immunoglobulin class switching and somatic hypermutation, as well as sustains T cell growth and differentiation. T cell derived cytokines bound by B cell cytokine receptors also promote B cell proliferation, immunoglobulin class switching and somatic hypermutation, as well as guide differentiation. After B cells receives these signals, they are considered activated. Now, activated B cells participate in two-step differentiation process that yields both short-lived plasma blasts for immediate production and long-lived plasma cells and memory B cells for persistent production. The first setup, known as the extrafollicular response occur outside of lymphoid follicles. During this step, activated B cells proliferate, may undergo immunoglobulin classing and differentiate into plasmablasts that produce early weak antibodies, mostly of class immunoglobulin M. The second step consists of activated B cells entering a lymphoid follicle and forming a germinal center, which is specialized microenvironment where B cells undergo extensive proliferation, immunoglobulin classing and affinity maturation directed by somatic hypermutation. These processes are facilitated by TFH cells within the germinal center and generate both high affinity memory B cells and long-lived plasma cells. Resultant plasma cells secrete large amount of antibody and more preferentially migrate to bone marrow. Dear students, moving on the next part, that is transposition. It is a process by which segments of a chromosomes are relocated through the genome. Commonly, this process involves transposable elements or transposons, but can also occur with genes. Gene transposition may involve the machinery of transposons, including target DNA sequences used by transposon translocation machinery. Transposition can be either replicative or conservative in nature. In replicative transposition, the transposable elements is copied and the copy is relocated, leaving behind the original. This results in duplicate copies of the transposable elements existing within the genome. In conservative transposition, the transposable element is excised from its original location, then reinserted at a new location. Because the excision of the transposable elements is not always perfect, adjacent sequences can be removed and relocated as well. This process is known as exon shuffling and is one of the important methods by which organisms develop new gene products. It includes the cases in which DNA rearrangements cause stable changes in patterns of gene expression. Sometimes, under certain stimulus, transfer of gene within a genome can occur, which result in a stable change in the pattern of expression. At first, the gene may be in a silent site, and upon transposition, it has reached in an expression site. This phenomenon of variation in gene expression depending upon its position in the genome is referred as position effect. The best example of transposition is the surface antigens in yeast and trypanosomes. Now, the mating type switch in yeast. The basis of cellular differentiation is best understood in the yeast mating type switching system. The yeast cell produces daughter cells that differ from each other or from their parent cell via developmentally regulated genomic rearrangements. Baker's yeast propagates as haploid cells, but at a low frequency two cells may fuse and produce diploids that are able to produce spores. The cells can fuse, however, only if they are of opposite sex or mating type. The mating types are A and alpha. Genetic studies have shown that yeast switch their sex in a most unexpected way. The genetic information for the alpha or A mating type is stored in silent places on yeast. These storage sites are called silent cassettes, and their expression is actuated only when these genes are transposed into expressed position. Another example of transposition of the silent genes into an expression site is provided by the surface antigens of Trypanosoma brucei. The genome of Trypanosoma brucei carries over 100 genes coding for different variants of the major surface glycoprotein. Activation of some of these genes is accompanied by a duplication and transposition of the gene to another region in the genome where it is transcribed. This flagellate is transmitted to mammals by the tsetse fly and causes sleeping sickness in humans. The trypanosome surface is covered by large amount of glycoprotein against which the host produces antibodies. It has been shown that each trypanosome has more than 100 surface glycoprotein genes, but they are not expressed until transposed into a single expression site in the same way as in yeast mating type switching. Dear students, now let's have a brief idea about epigenetic control for cell differentiation. Since each cell, regardless of cell type, possesses the same genome, determination of cell type must occur at the level of gene expression. While the regulation of gene expression can occur through cis and trans regulatory elements, including a gene's promoter and enhancers, the problem arises as to how this expression pattern is maintained over numerous generations of cell division. As it turns out, epigenetic processes play a crucial role in regulating the decision to adopt a stem progenitor or mature cell fate. Epigenetic processes are heavily involved in cell fate determination. The term epigenetics has been used to refer to changes in gene expression, which are heritable through multiple cell division cycles that are not due to variation in primary DNA sequences. Stable suppression of differentiation gene is required to sustain the undifferentiated state in cells, ranging from embryonic stem cell to somatic stem cell progenitors that constantly replenish cell renewing tissues. However, the epigenetic mechanism behind the maintenance of cellular differentiation are not yet fully understood. Major effectors of epigenetic control include regulators of DNA methylation and histone modification, as well as ATP-dependent chromatin remodeling enzymes. These interact with other regulators such as DNA sequence-specific transcription factors and non-coding RNAs to landscape the genome during development, differentiation and cancer. Epigenetic changes alter the physical structure of DNA. One example of epigenetic change is DNA methylation, the addition of a methyl group to part of the DNA molecule, which prevents certain genes from being expressed. Another example is histone modification. Histones are proteins that DNA wrap around. Without histones, DNA would be too long to fit inside cells. If histones squeeze DNA tightly, the DNA cannot be read by the cell. Modifications that relax the histone can make the DNA accessible to proteins that read genes. Epigenetics is the reason why a skin cell looks different from a brain cell or a muscle cell. All three cells contain the same DNA, but their genes are expressed differently, which creates the different cell types. With this, we come to the end of today's program. Hope you have enjoyed it well. Thank you for watching.